Whew. I guess let's try this again. So in the immortal words of Stained, it's been a while for a multitude of reasons, which I'm going to get into. But I want to start off by saying that, number one, I kind of miss this. Because I've realized how much this kind of helps in a way. It was one of the things that kept me on a regular schedule, even if I was off schedule by maybe a couple days. But it was also good to be able to talk and express what I've been thinking for the week, even though it's reaching like a handful of people. And out of that handful, I'm not even sure how many of them actually care. Based on the fact that no one commented about where this vlog is, I think it's safe to say that not a lot of people watch it. And it's fine, because it wasn't the viewership for this vlog that was helpful. It was just the act of doing it, you know? The other videos that I put up, if those don't get hits, that's annoying. But for this vlog, this was meant to be an exercise. And got over the halfway point of the 52, and suddenly everything stopped. But for valid reasons. And the reason is, I got COVID. Yep, that's right. I got COVID. That was an interesting situation. And for all you naysayers out there and people that are on the fence as to whether or not this thing exists or whether or not it's bad for you, yeah, it's fucked up. Specifically for me, it was kind of annoying because as the production went on, quite a few people got COVID, and kudos to the production, like they kept things very well in terms of safety and stuff. Like the second someone felt sick, everybody gets tested. Even if it turns out it wasn't COVID, just as a formality. Someone sneezes, get tested, everyone. Someone coughs, get tested, everyone. I got it, well, I tested positive on my break days, which was a good thing because that way I wasn't near anyone at the time on the set. I was supposed to be picked up for transport like at the end of the day. Whenever we're about to go off to go back on set, everybody takes a test first before we leave. And my test had a little faint line where the positive bit is. So I was like, fuck. Straight away, told my wife to test herself as well, and I took another test. Negative. Then I took another test. These all were different brands just to see what happens. The third test, positive with a stronger line. I was like, okay, I should go and get a proper test to find out. So went to this clinic in Tamangtuan that I can't remember the name of that does tests, because if I went to a private hospital, it would be a fuckload more expensive. And I wanted a fast turnaround, so I took an RTK. This was at 11 a.m. And the results came out negative. And I got the result like half an hour, 45 minutes after, it was negative. So great, I can still go for shoot, cool. Maybe I was just feeling under the weather. But as I was packing, the more I kept packing my clothes, the more I felt like, ugh, I don't feel good. Like I can feel a fever coming in. And a part of me was hoping that it was just a fever, like nothing infectious. It was just my time to get a fever, but it was coming in strong. So by that point, I was like, you know what? Something about this don't feel right. So I went back to the clinic. This was around 4 p.m. And they've closed off their testing already. And I was like, look, I took a test this morning, but I'm not feeling well. Can I see a doctor or something? I'll find out what's going on. Then the nurse that tested me earlier that morning walks past and she just blurts out, oh yeah, his test was false. Like that was a false negative. It was wrong. We need to do it again. She took my test at 11 a.m. They had my phone number because they messaged me the results. No one decided to say, hey man, yeah, that was a false negative. You need to do it again. Like if I didn't come in, an hour later, I would have been on a van heading off to set and just infecting everyone, thinking I'm okay. So they did another test, and it turns out positive. Gave me a whole bunch of meds for any eventuality. For some reason, never letting me see the doctor, which I found weird. Because I went back to the clinic again later on to get a test, and yeah, after my quarantine period. And yeah, still didn't get to see a doctor, just speaking to nurses. Well, fine, whatever. So yeah, I got COVID. We had a very short time to prep for it. So quickly made the guest room into the quarantine room, which is a small guest room. Everything was in a bit of disarray because if you saw the last episode, my main workroom had gone flooded before and things were still damp and there was hardly any furniture in there and some of the crap was in the guest room, so we had to try and just make it as livable as possible for the duration I was there. And by that evening, by like 6 or 7, the fever was full on fucked up. I just felt terrible. Really harsh fever and bad sore throat. Those were the two main symptoms. Still had my sense of smell and taste. No hard breathing, no diarrhea or nausea, so that's good. But the way the fever hit alone, I hadn't had a fever in a long time. This one was a bad one. 3 to 4 days of a bad fucking fever. By the 4th day, it finally started calming down a bit. But it took me until maybe the 5th or 6th day before it felt, no, probably the 6th day by the time it felt like, okay, the fever's gone. It was rough. For some reason as well, because I know some other people that got COVID, especially on the set, I was one of the few that had like the bad symptoms. Because a bunch of other people that I talked to is like, oh, okay, no, I had a fever for 2 days and I was fine. Oh, I felt a bit under the weather, a bit of a headache, and then after 2-3 days I was fine. Then I had this fucking god-awful fever. It was terrible, like, and it's not just the fever, it's the fever and the fact that that week that I was supposed to go on set, it was supposed to be the most complex sequence for my episodes. Because it was the finale of the final episode and it's the final act. Like, it's the thing that closes off the show, you know, and it was a big sequence on a beach. There were stunts involved. I'd been planning this sequence for like 2-3 months. And it was a tough sequence, and I wasn't there. The other directors had to fill in for me. I'm pretty sure they did a good job, regardless of everything that happened. But I felt really guilty for that. That was my responsibility, and I wasn't there for it. So you have that as well. And the thing that makes the fever worse than usual fevers is the fact that no one can really take care of you the way they do when you're sick. You know, if you fall sick, you have a fever at home, and you live with someone, whether it's with your parents or a friend or your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, the other party can help you out. With this, like, I could infect them. Not only that, I could kill them. So it became this whole thing of food's left outside the door and I go get it. If I wanted to take a shower in the bathroom shower, because that's the one with hot water, you know, like I gotta wear like sandals and gloves and a mask just to make sure I don't infect anything. And then after that, my wife will come and just sanitize the area. Like, you feel so separated from everything. That sucked. Like, it was weird. Like, I hadn't experienced that kind of quarantine because the whole time that we'd had quarantine for like on and off for the past 2 years, I was always with my wife. This was the first time I experienced it alone. And my God, I feel so bad for all my single friends out there who lived in like 1-bedroom apartments. Like, I don't know how you guys made it. Kudos to you, because all of y'all that were living alone during this pandemic, I just got a taste of it. Granted, I was sick whilst doing it, but still, I got a taste of it and I fucking hated it. That shit sucked so bad. So yeah, like the first week that I hadn't had an episode, that's what kicked it off. COVID. You know, I had to quarantine for 7 days and technically it should have been out of my system. But on the 7th day, went to the clinic and was still testing positive, which was like, fuck. You know, and I called up, you know, one of the COVID centers to try and find out what the fuck I should do. And yeah, the guy said like, look, after today, you no longer have to be in quarantine, and yeah, you can go back to work, it's gonna be fine. COVID's still gonna be in your system for the next 2 months, so you're gonna test positive sometimes, you know, for the next 2 months anyway. I'm like, okay, that's not putting my mind at ease, you know what I mean? But to be safe, I just wanted to wait until, at least on a self-test, it would start popping up as negative. So I didn't go back in to shoot till I think the 9th day, 8th or 9th day. And even going back on set, even though I was physically okay in terms of all the symptoms, I was so weak. And not just weak, like really bad brain fog. Like I couldn't focus or communicate as smoothly and as quickly as I could. Which as a director is kind of a skill you need. But yeah, it was tough. It was only after another week, you know, by the 2nd week of me shooting again, I felt much more like myself. And now I'm feeling pretty normal, which is good. But yeah, COVID kicked my fucking ass. Hated it. I don't ever want to experience that again. And I don't want anyone else to have to experience it either. So that was my experience with COVID. So as you can imagine, after that, I'm still feeling weak and all this stuff. And right after it, it was like this mad rush to just finish this show. So yeah, that's why I wasn't doing any vlogs. And it was like the last thing on my mind because I was like, okay, let's just finish this shit, get it over with, and then we'll go back to a normal life. And we finally wrapped the show at the end of last month. Managed to wrap it a day early, which I'm kind of proud of because I was the one shooting the last day. As opposed to like splitting into 2 days, everyone seemed to be all right to like, let's go on till 4 a.m. and wrap this motherfucker out. So we did. As you can imagine, everyone was very happy. And also bittersweet, everyone was also very sad because that shoot, like, there was a great environment to it. Like, I can honestly say that was the nicest set I've been on. Full stop. Compared to other TV shows. Maybe even compared to movies, actually. That was the nicest set, just in terms of attitude and work ethic. Yeah, and the showrunner really managed to create a really nice environment for everyone involved, cast and crew. So there was a lot of camaraderie. I had some people on the set that were from, regular TV shows in Malaysia, and they don't want to take the regular jobs anymore. Like, they want this nice experience again. And I don't blame them, because it was a great experience. Of course, like any shoot, there are problems, and there are plenty of problems. But when you have an environment like that, and everyone's on the ball like that, everyone's on the same page trying to solve the problem. I think the last time I was on a TV set where there was this kind of camaraderie, it was a camaraderie that existed in order to combat how fucked up the shoot was. We hated the script, we hated the scheduling, we hated how the producers were, we hated how the station was. Everything was fucking falling apart, but we have each other. So let's all group together and just get through this shit. And that camaraderie was nice, but it's camaraderie built out of trying to, deal with the bullshit. This one, there was great camaraderie and great work. It really felt like a family, and I'm really grateful to everyone on that set and really thankful for the experience there. And I really hope I get to work with all of you guys again, because that was fun. And just like I was saying about some of the crew members, like, fuck, I don't want to go back to the same bullshit anymore. Yeah, I kind of got a taste of that. Because think about it, like, I was on a shoot for what ended up to become 3 months. It was only supposed to be 2. And I had concerns about the shoot because I hadn't been in mainstream for so long that, I thought it was going to be like the same old shit again. And I was really preparing myself. Like, I was preparing for a fight. So having it become a great experience was wonderful for me. But also going back to regular shit, you realize, like, wow, just how good it was. Like, for 3 months, I felt like I had value as a filmmaker. I felt good. As a worker, I felt good. Right after that, things weren't going the way I originally planned. Needed to make some quick cash. So I took a last-minute job. A simple interview shoot job. Yes, even though they're two very different things, it's the attitude that was very prevalent for me. I only took the job because it was a last-minute thing, and I needed to make some quick cash, and payments were slow, and the way that whole situation was being treated really reminded me of how much more respected I was as an individual, as a worker, and as a person on set on that TV show. Like, yeah, last week I was pretty down in the dumps, which is why I didn't record it last week, even though I had the time. But all I would have done is bitch about that situation. And yeah, my depression kicked in pretty hard as well. It was a rough time. It's all been sorted out, but I was not a fan of how that was handled. And I think it's also because I had a frame of reference. So yeah, that was weird. And just trying to go back into the daily grind. Like, I'm back in the studio now, and I've been back in the studio since like the second day I got back from the shoot. Because whilst I was on set, I had so many different ideas of things that I wanted to do, and was just annoyed that I couldn't be back in here. And one of those things was to rearrange the studio, which is why everything looks a little bit different. I've been spending the last 2 weeks doing that because I had an idea in my head as well, and it's turning out pretty all right. Like, it feels a lot better. Like, there's different, the areas feel right. Just have a little bit more rewiring and some decorating to do, but it's looking good. And if you're curious, yes, a lot of the ideas have been music-based, because for those that do follow the channel and check out my shit, I posted a song, a music video that I shot here and recorded here with all the equipment here, because I really wanted to test shit out and see how it worked. And it was after doing that, that's when I had the ideas for rearranging the space and the other songs I want to record and how to record them. because the workflow started to make sense, you know? So that track, like, played all the instruments, like, I was playing the drums, playing the bass, the guitars, obviously, the singing, the programming, the mastering, all the way to the mastering. I'd never mastered a track by myself properly before. And I was kind of happy with how that turned out, actually. And I'll be putting the track up online pretty soon, but right now it's only on YouTube. And that was something where I did the bulk of before we started shooting the show, and then just every weekend when I had time, I'd start working on it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And for those that checked it out, thank you very much. Hope you dug it. I was very happy with how that track came out and the recording in here. Like, it's got a nice sound. And the whole time that I was on this shoot, like, you know, when I had downtime, and I'd have a lot of downtime in my hotel room sometimes. So I brought a guitar along and I just record ideas and then just film it with my phone so I don't forget, you know, the arrangement and what chords I'm playing and how I'm playing it. And then whilst I had COVID, again, like, if I had some ideas, there was a bass lying around at home, so I record that as well on my phone. You know, so a bunch of those ideas that I want to try and bring to fruition, a bunch of my old songs that I want to re-record, that I've been figuring out the arrangements for, so yeah. Like, my original plan was after the shoot, I was going to take a month and not shoot anything and just record in the studio. But because things got broken up and, you know, when people get COVID, things get pushed forward as well, so we ended up shooting a month longer than we wanted to. Otherwise, you know, like, technically we should have wrapped end of February, which is when I had my last payment. So with that money, I wouldn't have had to go out and find other jobs. I could have just stayed here, do my shit, not have to chase the fucking cash money for the bills. But now it's how it is. Still gotta balance this shit. That's how things have been going. And that's why things have been delayed. We'll see what the future holds. Like, I want to still try and record all this stuff that I want to record. But at the same time, I know I need to find jobs. It's weird, like, now that I'm off that set, like, in my head, I'm seriously wondering, like, I don't know whether I'm going to get hired for gigs like that anymore. Regardless of whether the set is the way that that one was. Like, whether or not I'm even going to be hired for that stuff anymore. Who knows? We'll see, you know? Because it's also not something that I want to actively chase too much, but because, you know, that's what I used to do. But at the same time, it would be nice to do that stuff again, because it's weird. After doing that shoot, especially being able to compare it to doing something else, like, I miss directing. I miss directing for the sake of directing. And just directing. That doesn't mean I don't like being a DOP. If I'm working with people that I really like, I love being a DOP. But directing, it really made me realize how long I hadn't just directed. Like a good, almost 10 years? Maybe? I don't know. So who knows whether I'll be able to do that stuff again, but I'm still very grateful that I managed to. And with that, that's the end of the ep. Catch you later.